Arouca, Tunapuna. Are you red and ready? On board with Ford. Remember that? A good night to you all. Chair Lady of this evening's proceedings, Mrs. Laurel Lizama, Leasing, Mrs. Camille Robinson Regis, Head of the PNM's Women's League, Lady Vice Chairman as an office holder in the party, and Minister of Planning and Development, Minister of Education, Minister Anthony Garcia, your very own daughter of Nathaniel Critchlow, Minister of Social Services and Family Services, Social Development and Family Services, Mrs. Sherry-Ann Critchlow Coburn. And in our audience, I would like to acknowledge my cabinet colleagues, the Minister of Community Development, Arts and Culture, Mrs. Leon Gadsby Dolly, and the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Senator Dennis Moses, and all our PLM standard bearers for the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation, led by the outgoing chairman and executive council members, and the many tens of thousands of you who have been making a habit of listening to us at home on the various radio frequencies. A very good night to you from Five Rivers Junction. As I speak to you tonight, we are just a few days away from an election next Monday, local government election 2016. When we came into office, we made it very clear from our public utterances that the local government elections will be held in 2016. And that is why we are here tonight, taking part in this campaign of information, hoping to inform you of what local government reform is all about, and also to encourage you to participate in the process by coming out to vote and to vote for the People's National Movement. I did read somewhere sometime long ago that there was research that was done which showed that when things were said in this kind of way, when statements were made or groups were addressed by speakers from platforms, only about 14% of what was said is usually retained by those who are listening. And therefore, it is necessary to repeat it over and over if you would like the listening public to grasp a large proportion of what has been said. Because many persons would hear a long conversation from the platform and would go away maybe carrying only 1 or 2 points. And some people may not even carry away anything at all. So election campaigns are usually about repeating the statements and the issues so that at the end of the campaign, all those who have exposed themselves to the hearing and the visuals would be informed by this repetitive process. So I'm not surprised that there are those who would be saying that we have not been dealing with the issues. And the minute I mention profligate spending, and I did mention how they spent $1.6 million on a Diwali celebration, all of a sudden everybody was hearing, everybody heard that. And of course, we begin to get editorials and comments, and I was even accused when there was report, thankfully, of minor violence and foul threats to one of our candidates. A person in authority, writing with authority, accused me of being responsible for the violence that is being perpetrated now because of my statements on the platform. I want to ask you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago tonight, what statement have I made on any platform for the last month that caused anybody to want to even talk violently to anybody else? But of course, it may be that this research that said only 14% is absorbed by the listening public is really true. Because it means that 86% of what was said by us in this campaign has not been heard by certain particular people, especially those who want to tell us to deal with the issues. But let me say tonight, from the PNM platform in 2016, I have never seen or heard a local government campaign where the issues have been dealt with so comprehensively than from a PNM platform in this year. Because every single night that we have been to every single township, city or borough on the PNM platform, every one of our speakers engaged the issue in front of us, local government reform. And in their various ways, dealing with different aspects of the reform, night after night, and repeated on the radio on the following day, in the morning and the evening, we have been educating the people of Trinidad and those listening in Tobago that we are about to embark on comprehensive local government reform to bring government and governance closer to you, the people in the districts. But in the face of that, some people still calling for the issues. Well, we will continue to educate them. But of course, you know, there are some horses you can take to the water, and you could never make any one of them drink. But it really did strike me as odd that they would latch on to any issue and try to portray it as though that is what the campaign is about. As a matter of fact, I read today that what we are doing here, me as political leader and my compatriot on the other side, is fighting for our political future. I want to say to all those who think that my political future in this country, in the PNM, is very politically secure. If other people have problems with the future, that is not my problem. But we have been saying to you, not in this campaign, not in this government, but from the opposition. From the opposition, we have been saying to you, put us into government. Vote for our general election candidate. Right here in Arouca, we gave to you a new candidate, brand new, out of the public service in NIB. We say to you here in Arouca, vote for Sherian Critchlow-Coburn. And if you do that, Arouca, you will be on the government side, because the PNM is going to win the election, because young Esmond Ford was going to win in Tunapuna. And when you get a PNM government, one of the things the PNM government is going to do is to bring about local government reform. We told you that from this platform before I was sworn in as Prime Minister. As a matter of fact, so unique was that campaign that in Arima next door to you, I named the education minister before the election day. And when I went down to South, I named the agriculture minister before election day. No other prime minister has ever done that in this country. Such is the confidence I had in you, the people, last year, 2015. We came into government and met the most horrendous fiscal arrangement in the country. And external pressures are putting pressure on us in this country. We've lost a significant amount of our revenues. Oil price gone down, gas price gone down, debt to pay, and so on and so on. But we've been holding it together. And I'm saying to you now, I'm not a betting man, but I'm sure that you, the people here, you understand what the country is going through. You understand what the government is doing, what is right, and what we are preventing, and what we are encouraging. And I retain the confidence I had last year, and I have it in you this year. And come November 28th, I'll see you at the polls. And we're going to lick them in the east. We're going to beat them in the west. We're going to beat them in the north. We're going to beat them in the south. And we're going to beat them in central Trinidad too. Last Sunday evening, I went walking in Charleville in central Trinidad. with a batch of PLM members and supporters. And I was warmly welcomed as I walked all the way down Charleville and all the way down Pierre Road. I'm not saying that they will all vote for the PNM, but some of them who was not going to vote for the PNM, they're thinking now about the PNM. And those who were there will tell you what a wonderful reception we had as an election campaign in an area where the PNM has never gone in and sought to ask for their support. And of course, the next day I saw on the front page in The Guardian that I was jeered in Charleville. Well, if that was jeering, please jeer me again. But they have to resort to that, because I tell them, nowhere in Trinidad or Tobago is out of reach of the People's National Movement. And we've opened our doors to every citizen in a way that the door has never been opened before. And that is why when we go to Sandy Grande next Monday, half of the corporation would be PNM Blue Blood, and the other half would be UNC Blood. Because we've taken half of the UNC in Sandy Grande already. And by Monday, we'll take the other half. So if you hear them going stark raving mad, it's because they've lost before election day. And they're looking for all kinds of issues. So tonight, with 5 days to go of campaigning, today is what, Tuesday? So we have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We rest on Sunday, and the election is Monday. So we have 5 days of campaigning. So I am now required to respond to what others have been saying to and about this issue. On the issue of local government reform, there has been no response from the other side. They have not engaged the issue. So there's nothing to respond to, except that they have said that if we set out to do what we say we intend to do, they're lying in wait in the parliament, hoping that they will use their 18 votes in the parliament to block anything that we try to do that requires legislation. That is the only response that they have made to this crusade that we've been carrying on with, on this long-standing issue of local government reform. So we know that. And I'll come back to that point in a minute. But in the meantime, there were some other issues that they raised. They raised some other issues. And I want to deal with one of them in particular. Is that they're trying to tell us what we must say, what we must engage in, what we must tell you, and what we mustn't tell you. And I want to ask you, people of Trinidad and Tobago, for your ear for a moment. We did not get into government by virtue of our birth. We did not get into government by virtue of any contract written by our parents. We got into government by saying to you that there was a very bad government in office, a very bad group of people in office, and you need to know what they are doing, because what they are doing will be largely hidden from you. And what you were seeing was bad enough, but that there was more to it than that. And we said to you in the opposition, and we're saying to you here tonight, you put us into government to deal with that situation, and we intend to deal with it. And one way we intend to deal with it is that we will let you know what they were doing when they were in government every time we find out what they were doing. And the reason for that is so that you will never make the mistake and put them back there again to do what they were doing, to do it again. I remember I was in Tobago building my house, and there was a gentleman working on a wall there for me, and he was Coach Charles' staunchest supporter. In those days, PNM was down in the dumps. I think it was, and the NAR was very strong. And this one guy was a known supporter of Coach Charles. But the political tide was turning, and the other workers were teasing him all the time, and he will be there building his wall, and he's never responding, not saying anything. And one day I said to him, they told me that he intends to vote against Coach Charles. I could not believe this statement. So I went to him and I asked him if that was true. And he stopped his work and he looked up at me and he said, I supported Hochoi Charles all these years and I intended to support him in this election. I don't care what you all say. He's a good man and he has worked hard for Tobago and I am going to support him. Up until, he said, when Hochoi Charles made the statement about the other ring bang thing, and they confronted him with the expenditure on Ada and ring bang, Hochoi Charles said, after he justified the other ring bang expenditure, he said, if he gets the opportunity, he will do it again. And the man said to me, he said he will do it again. He said, me been intent to support him even though he had done that. But he said he would do it again. And on that basis, I didn't see how he voted, but I suspect that Hochoi Charles had lost a very strong supporter, and of course they lost the election. I'm saying to you tonight, after what I just told you there, this gentleman understood something that Kamala Persad-Bissessar does not understand. Because when I called this election, she launched her campaign. She launched the campaign in my area in Diego Martin. Remember that? And I thought she was going to come to outline the UNC's position, what they support, what they don't support, how far they will go with the reform and so on and so on. No. She came to tell us that all that you knew from before, all that took them out of office, they will do it again. And the highlight of her response to our local government campaign reform was that she's going to bring back Arnel Roberts and put him back in the parliament. And the madness has not changed from then. That madness continued. Because I followed what she was saying in the campaign, because as leader of the PNM's effort, I am required to respond to what the opponents are saying. Because this is pretty much a public debate. You know what she's saying now? She's asking you to support her and her cohorts because the country has a high crime rate. And the reason why the country has a high murder rate is because the government has dismantled what she and her government left in place to fight crime. I have heard all kinds of allegations made about Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar. I am beginning to believe that some of it is true. Because only a mad person or some person who is losing their faculty temporarily otherwise would make a statement like that. I want to ask you here in Five Rivers and in Trinidad and Tobago, what did Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the UNC have in place last year, September, which is not in place now? What did they have in place then, which is not there now? I will tell you what is there now that wasn't there last year. The first thing is that a National Security Council in this government, made up of key members of the cabinet, function on a regular basis monitoring the national security initiative of Trinidad and Tobago. The minister in the office of the Attorney General is there, the Attorney General is there, the Foreign and CARICOM Minister is there, the Minister of Finance is there, and I chair it with the technical people, and of course the heads of all the security services, and we meet on a regular basis. And we've included in that recently meeting the divisional heads of the police service, who are now known to us and who are now working out there, being given the authority and the support of the government to take control of their districts. And we are being told that we have dismantled what they had in place. You know what they had in place? You remember that huge cabinet that she had? 3/4 of that cabinet was in the National Security Council. And you know why? They had to all be on the council. So at any given day, 2 or 3 of them may turn up to a council meeting. And she as Prime Minister, you heard Gary Griffith say she was coming to work twice a week and having 5-day weekends? Well, we dismantled that. I am available on a 24/7 basis to the National Security Council. You know where I live, they know how to reach me. Any minister in my cabinet could reach me 24/7. with my pyjama on or my tracksuit on in the Prime Minister residence. And even if I'm on the golf course, they know how to reach me. So we dismantled that. And we have dismantled the attempt to demoralize the police service. Because to have a fighting force, fighting a war against the criminals, and having no leadership that has confidence in its own existence, we wanted to dismantle that, but they're preventing us from dismantling that. We have a war against crime. This government that she's talking about, we dismantled what they left. They dismantled Gibbs and Iwatsky. Remember them too? Pay them off with your millions to go home. Go home and go on vacation with our money. We don't need your work in Trinidad and Tobago. We will work the system by an acting commissioner. Because Anand Ramlogan say you don't want an appointed commissioner, you want an acting commissioner. Because when you have an acting commissioner, he will work harder to try and get the job when the job comes around. That was their policy. And we thought they were making joke. Making joke? They were dead serious. Because they have done nothing to assist with the appointment of a commissioner, and they are quite happy to have Acting Commissioner Williams retire as Acting Commissioner. And we are saying, this is a country that is fighting a war against criminals. What is it? We had a new US ambassador here recently. I had to work with him and to hear him say, please, Trinidad and Tobago, we need to sign this document. This is a document that the US requires to be signed so that the US could help us to fight crime in Trinidad and Tobago and fight the crime that is coming to us from abroad, even as far as Turkey and Syria. We need the US help. Tonight I want to ask Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Bissessa, what was preventing her from getting her government to sign that document? For 3 years they didn't sign it. 3 years. We have just operated and put into operation 2 scanners for containers. Lying there, gifts from the United States, wouldn't operationalize it. We accused them of dismantling what they met from the Manning government. So she is now accusing me of dismantling what they met. They went last election and ordered 12 boats of various sizes on trust. The boats came here. Some of them arrived in time for the election, not paid for, not suited for the arrangements. We are now paying for them. Some of them, the minute the wave go beyond 4 feet, the boat face frown and can't go. And we are still now, the last two of those boats are due to arrive here sometime soon because we have paid for them because they were contracted to be paid for and we had to complete the payments and they will arrive here sometime soon. Is that what we dismantled? Huh? We were stuck with that contract for those Damien boats. And we went through, we didn't do like them. We didn't cancel the contract and take the money and spend it on something else. They entered into the contractual arrangements. We took the boats. Most of them are being in use and the rest are still coming. I will tell you something else too. When I became Prime Minister of this country, one of the first issues that came to me was that unbeknownst to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, after they had cancelled the boats in England, those boats that went to the Brazilian Navy, they quietly entered into a contractual arrangement in China to buy a boat. As the elections were underway, it was clear to them that they will not win the election. Unbeknownst to us here in Trinidad and Tobago, they gave orders for the boat to sail from China to Trinidad and Tobago. Unarmed. An unarmed warship from Trinidad and Tobago sailing on its own through pirating waters to come to Trinidad and Tobago. We never knew that until I was told that as Prime Minister. I had to call our foreign friends to ask them to use their navies to protect our ship with our men and women on board and foreign people on board. That was the gift of Kamala Prasad-Bissessa and the UNC. And of course, the boat was not paid for. We have to pay for it now. Order in time for election, and I suspect that the reason why they ordered the ship to sail unfinished is because they thought that we would have cancelled the contract when we came into government. But we have said before, We are a responsible government, and a contract made by the government of Trinidad and Tobago binds the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and will honor those contracts unless there is fraud or there are legal loopholes which allow us not to honor those contracts. We are a civilized and decent country, and a contract by the government of Trinidad and Tobago binds us and warns us not to elect government like that again. So when you hear dressed up in a yellow like a piece of cheese and talking about what we do and what we didn't do, I want you to understand what the issues are. And when we say to you that we celebrate every one of our national days, and it is good that a prime minister in the prime minister's office could celebrate, but you don't have to celebrate by spending millions of dollars. We have celebrated in 2016 as good as we can celebrate, as we should celebrate, and we didn't spend millions. And it wasn't on Diwali, it was on everything that there was splurging. It was on Diwali, it was on Eid, it was on Christmas, it was on Emancipation, Baptist holiday. It was an opportunity to spend money, to give their friends money for what they shouldn't have. And when I mentioned that, as profligate spending at the level of the household of the Prime Minister, all they could see in it is roti and race. That's all they could see, as if we are afraid of the term race. I have a race too, and if I'm doing wrong, then you let me know, and my race would be ashamed of me. And for those of you in the media, I spoke for a whole month every night, and the minute they mentioned the foolishness, you have it in editorial and talking about we taking the campaign down in the gutter. If you don't want to listen to the PNM, say I wasn't listening to the PNM. But there was so much information on the PNM platform that we are falling for that. And you know what? They're trying to use their friends to prevent us from telling you what we have found. Every time we find the wrongdoing, come to a PNM meeting, listen to a PNM minister, listen to a PNM press conference, you will know. You will know. Because we are not going to fall for this foolishness to cover up for them so that they could paint themselves like Angel, Gabriel, brother and sister, and you think that they're good. Huh? They have been given the opportunity to run this country, and they have made a scandalous mess of it. And they're desperately in search of a mark to bust. Huh? So I'm listening to the issues there is. We are here talking about local government. We are saying to you here in the East-West Corridor in Tunapuna Piako, we want to give you the responsibility by way of the authority to collect land and building taxes in this whole area. Not just collect it, but collect it and keep it and use it to fund your day-to-day operations, while you wait for any additional money that will come your way from the Minister of Finance. That will put you in a position to use those monies, whatever the number, in a way that you otherwise could not perform. You are adults, many of you are running households, and you know if you have a salary coming in on a regular basis, whatever the size of the salary, you could operate on a basis of spending because you know there's money coming, money that you control. But if you have to wait for every now and then to get a little inflow, even though it might be larger than the normal monthly inflow, you're living in an up and down arrangement. So we want to put you in a situation where you have a revenue stream, and more importantly, while we all accept that land and building taxes is a reasonable arrangement to raise money to service you, to pick up the garbage, to clean the streets, to weed the graveyard and so on, we agree that a tax is required for that. It also says that you want to get the best for when you spend that. And you therefore want to be in control of it, because many of you know that there isn't the kind of control and accountability for expenditure in local government because the management and the authority is too far away from where the action is taking place. And we draw to your attention every night how Tobago has benefited from this ability to manage closer to the household. And of course, since you are controlling the money and you are spending it, you have a vested interest in making sure that every household pay their share and pay it on time. So you get better tax collection and better order in the community. Because when you are a taxpayer, your money being collected to be spent on you in your street and your neighborhood, you can feel a sense of pride that you are a contributor to your own development and you feel that you are in charge. And when you see something going wrong, you are driven to intervene. Intervene by removing incompetent councillors or worse, corrupt councillors. Talking to who is in charge and ask them, why aren't you doing your job? And letting them know that if your job is not being done properly, my corporation has the authority to fire you as a garbage collector if your garbage is not being collected. And these are the kinds of controls we bring down to you. You heard from Mrs. Camille Robinson-Regis tonight that we want to give you control in your corporation to oversee the granting of approval for dwelling house construction. If you require to do a dwelling house, what you need is just an engineering overview of the structure to ensure that the drawings meet certain standards and that certain environmental things are met, certain setbacks are met, and your corporation could do that. And you will have within the corporation officers accountable to your corporation to do that. And of course, there'll be better law enforcement and better planning control. And your whole neighborhood can be planned the way you want it planned. And therefore, you can then see that sense of pride as you enforce the standards that you want. That's what you get out of local government. And of course, if there are social services, as there will be, for those of you in the community who require government assistance in any form, that assistance should come on qualification established by your social service workers. And then you ensure that what the parliament allocates to your corporation for that purpose gets to the people who qualify and not those who don't qualify, and those who need help get the help that the parliament said they must get. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? And we are saying to you, after so many years of educating you, building so many schools for you, looking after your health and your education, we believe that our population is right and ready for assuming this responsibility. And if it didn't happen before, well, then maybe it shouldn't have happened before. But that doesn't prevent it from happening now. We're red and we're ready. We're red, white, and black, and we're ready. We're red, white, and black, and we're ready. Ready for responsibility at the local level. We are now training in UTT and at UWI a whole new generation of young people in all kinds of subjects and skills. And those are the people who are supposed to come into the corporation and run it using the skills that they have picked up. And in so doing, they get themselves good jobs contributing to an improvement in your quality of life. Because the objective of all of this is not to fight our political opponents, not to promote ourselves, not to create opportunity for ourselves, but to improve the quality of your life. And all the major developments in this country, like this one, will have a stamp on it. And the stamp says PNM. I listen to them. What's on the platform for the local government election? As the campaign started and we are underway in the campaign, somebody bringing money through a container, I think is in Point Lisas. Well, it's a shocking amount of US currency. It clearly points to some illicit activity, but it's not the first time that our ports have been exposed to that. I wasn't the Prime Minister when a whole load of chicken came in this country already seasoned with marijuana. And the information that I have at the time is that those to whom the containers were consigned, look, I think it happened twice. Once with car parts and the other time with chicken. And those who were alleged to know something about it as consignees, they were the ones who was taking the Prime Minister out of the Prime Minister's office from November to December every year. the Prime Minister turned Mrs. Claus on a truck, giving out millions of dollars in toys every year, November to December. And when we ask, where are these toys coming from? Who is spending these millions to give you toys to go around the country playing Santa Claus? They say the corporate sector. The corporate sector is funding the toy drive. Well, last year there was no toy drive by the Prime Minister of this country, but the children of this country had a clean, healthy, legal Christmas. And of course, we were right here when a whole shipment, it's not a one-way trade, you know, a whole shipment of cocaine in juice cans went the other way. Remember that? And when a house down the island from roof to floor, from kitchen to bedroom was full of cocaine. So how come we didn't blame the government for that and say it's the Prime Minister who is responsible and involved in it? But in the local government election, while we are talking local government reform with specifics going to legislation to legislate these changes to give you the improved conditions, my opponent is on a platform talking foolishness that the Prime Minister knows something about the importation. And she's so ridiculous. It is said by the security services and the customs that the money was hidden in some shipment of plywood coming into the country. So plywood was mentioned in that activity. I had gone to La Brea before the general election and spoke about looking for opportunities downstream in our energy sector, producing adhesives here in Trinidad and Tobago, and going to Venezuela and bringing lumber from Venezuela to create in Trinidad a plywood industry so the people of La Brea and the Southwest Peninsula can have some opportunity for economic activity and we can export a product that the American market needs. Tonight, I had to hear the ex-Prime Minister of this country say, she heard the money coming in plywood, and she wants to know if that is the plywood I promised the people in La Brea, and if those people are involved in jobs and involved in importing money. I don't want to describe that statement or the person who made it. I'm just telling you. Come to your own conclusion. And then, of course, they go on to say that we are funding our campaign by that money that came in from outside. Well, it's not the first time. It's 60 years the PNM have been here. We've been here for 60 years. We have one more function to carry out, which is our award function before the year is ended, to make awards to our stalwarts. And then we would have ended a year of celebration. Last Saturday night, we had a fantastic Calypso show as part of our celebration. And if there are those who don't understand that, you, the people, understand it. Because we don't have to pay to ship to bring you to stand on this corner. All of you in that corner over there, you came of your own free will. We have no maxi to pay. We have no truck to pay. We have nobody to bribe. We just say to you, there's a PNM meeting at the junction, and you came to the junction of your own free will. Not one of our PNM candidates was able to or is inclined to want to negotiate with us, to get anything from us, not even a plum to say that, give us that to be a candidate. But they're bargaining left, right, and center. Always bargaining. We don't make bargains in the PNM. These people on the stage here tonight are people who have come forward on their own volition, wanting to serve you at the level of the corporation. So we don't have to engage in criminal activity to fund nothing in this country as the political party, the PNM. We are the PNM, and we're 60 years old, and we're proud, and we're red, and we're ready. So I'm listening to their campaign to be able to respond to them. Next issue of the campaign, the local government campaign, is that we have not given children laptops. Well, parents, before Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisasa came into office, your children were going to school and were being very well educated without the so-called laptops. The contract for the laptop made some people very rich, but the exercise done by the experts at the university I read it out from the document in a public meeting at Maloney. I brought the report to Maloney in the general election, and I read out what the researchers have said. And they have said that the laptop program is making no significant contribution to the children's education. And they said the program, as it was being carried out, was distracting to many students and in fact was a negative influence on the children in the schools. So that was your policy. You want us to continue with a $240 million program where that was the report. We are not denying children access to computing skills. But the new Minister of Education has said that this government's approach is not to hand every child a laptop in that way, but to put in every school the opportunity for every child to learn the skill for computing. So the computers are the school's computers and not the children's computers. It's a change of policy that we stand by. And if you think that that will give you votes in the local government election, carry on, Madam, and keep talking foolishness. Of course, we had, since in the days when I was Minister of Housing, I left the Ministry of Housing in 2007, November. Mark that date, 2007, November. After I left, there was another PNM minister for the other 2 years, and there were 5 years of a UNC minister, and 1 year now under this government. So there are some housing units that were being built under my tenure in 2007. Some of them reached the point of virtual completion. In 2007, it is now 9 years, and most of those units are still unfinished and unavailable to the people, the many tens of thousands of you for whom the receipt of a key for a house is your life's greatest dream. And of course, some of them have been left abandoned, unsecured. So they have been vandalized by persons. This Minister of Housing is now faced in a situation where the HDC doesn't have money, where the government doesn't have money to fund the HDC. The minister has said, you know what we're going to do? There are many people on the list who, if they get one of these houses, they can complete the house and make it their home. And the HTC will do that. The minute we say that, it becomes an issue in this local government election. Big issue for Moonlal and Kamla Prasad Bisesa that we are having a garage sale and we're selling vandalized houses. I want to ask them, why were those houses allowed to remain untouched and vandalized for 5 years? And I want to say to you, the people who want a house, ignore Kamla Prasad Bisesa, ignore Rudan Munilal. He has enough house for himself, his grandchild, his great-grandchild, his nenen and his nanny, and you go by the HDC and see if you can get one of those houses. And if you get one, you'll be lucky, because you will get it on terms that are satisfactory to your affordability. I mean, you know, that is their local government campaign. That's their local government campaign. In my own constituency, we built 3 towers of over 200 units. When I left in 2007, the cupboards were in, the plumbing was in, the tiling was in. And the only thing of use that they were doing with them after was to put fire escape on them, because they were not designed with fire escapes. But after there was the fire in Laventil, in the multi-story building, and the woman jumped out and died, they took a decision which we support to put fire escapes on those buildings. You know what they did? They spent $300 million on those 3 towers, converting them from HDC level housing to maximum luxury housing, way out of the reach of any person who wants a house and was looking to the HDC for it. When they were finished and we had them valued, the cheapest one was $1.4 million, and the prices, the valuation rose By the time you got to the penthouse at the top, it was $4.5 million. So even though they were intended for you, the people, the middle income and the lower middle income people, this government cannot in all conscience make a $4.5 million house available to someone who can't afford to pay even the basic rate. So we are forced now to put those houses on the market and sell them to those who have money. A change of policy forced upon us. And if you think that was bad, right next door in St. James, there are 4 towers there, almost 200 units, desperately needed by people in the corporate area of Port of Spain and Diego Martin. They spent 5 years there under the last government, untouched, unfinished, not one apartment finishing there. Only last week, I met with the Minister of Housing and the Minister of Finance to make the arrangements to refund and restart that, to bring almost 200 units into use by people who need them next year going into 2018. And the people who oversaw that have the gall to come in the local election and try to make that an issue and telling people that something wrong is going on. But while they couldn't spend a cent on those units that they met almost finished, they were busy awarding contracts to new contractors to the tune of over $1 billion apiece. Our approach is not to create billion-dollar contracts, but under this government to spread the work out among a number of contractors so that they and their employees can get a piece of the pie and none of this nonsense about creating overnight millionaires for the political directorate. But of course, as I told you, they think that you're stupid. And they think that you will prefer what they were doing if you don't know what they were doing. And if we tell you what they were doing, them and their friends, we're tired of hearing that. Well, if you're tired, cork your ears, because we're going to tell you every time. They told you they're going to build a highway to Point Fortin. And it's going to be finished within budget and within time before the last election. You remember that one? We were in the opposition saying to you that that was a scandal from day one, because they embarked on the largest single project in the history of Trinidad and Tobago without any funding in place. And what was worse and more suspicious of that contract, while you embarked upon it with no funding in place, and Jack Warner was threatening to leave the party because Dukan was not giving him money, because they had turned the start for that project in January, and by May, nothing was happening because there was no funding in place. When they awarded the contract, a normal contract will carry a 10% mobilization. But in a scheme where you have no money, they awarded the contractor 20%. And I was told tonight why. I was confused. Why a government would want to do a thing like that? Why were you so generous to a contractor when you had difficulty funding the project in the first place, that you could give the contractor 20%? It was a $5 billion contract. You gave the contractor $1,000 million to start up, when legally and normally they will get $500 million. And why would you want to do that? Tonight somebody told me, they say, well, you're stupid or what? You have to collect up front. The payments are made up front, upfront loading. So just make sure those payments are made, and whatever happened after. So the payments were made, and we are now having to deal with what happened after happened. The end result was the contractor stopped working before the election. Don't fool yourself. The contractor stopped working before the election. Subcontractors not being paid in the news every day. Workers not being paid. Contractor bankrupt in Brazil. Judgment against the contractor by subcontractors, levying on the contractor's equipment. All of that was happening before we became government. And then we discover, when we came into government, that the government that just went out of office took an action, election week, to remove from the contract documents the clause that said that the government of Trinidad and Tobago could fire the contractor for bankruptcy. That action was to protect the contractor and to protect the $1 billion in cash that was the bond holding the contractor on the job. Well, we called on the contractor to perform. The contractor could not perform, and your government fired the contractor. And we went to London and fought them in the courts and won the cases and got back $1 billion for you. So what is really grieving her in this nonsense talk about dismantling what she left behind? We dismantled that and got back your money. And we are now assessing the project, and very soon we will proceed. We will proceed to award contracts to complete that highway to Point 14. You would have heard them saying when they were in office that there was nothing wrong with the gas supply. They had a minister of energy called Carolyn C. Prasad Bechan. Remember her? She had the temerity to go and interfere with a contract that was given to the Prime Minister's friends at NP, and go on with her fast self and say she put in investigation into the scandal that was in the papers. What happened to her? The Prime Minister removed her and replaced her with Kevin Ramnarine. Down in Point Lisas, the Point Lisas companies were complaining that there was a gas problem. They were not getting the gas that they need to make the methanol and the urea and so on, and the ammonia. And Mr. Kevin Ramnarine, as our Minister of Energy until September 7, 2015, consistently told this country there is no gas shortage. It is maintenance that is causing that. And as soon as the maintenance is finished, we'll get back to the gas flowing and all will be normal. At the same time, the government knew that the plants were getting up to 15% less than the gas that they need. And some of those plants would be losing money if they're producing under 80%. And some of them, they need to produce at 90% to be profitable. And some of them are damaged if you keep the flow of gas going up and down. And while that was going on, the government was lying to you, saying there is no gas problem. Today I can tell you, we have a serious gas problem in Trinidad and Tobago. And we always had. To the extent where some of our Point Lisas plants are in danger of shutting down. And what is frightening to us is that one particular company has sent in Trinidad and Tobago as its key man, the man who dismantled their business in Chile and took it to America. He's running the business in Trinidad now. And I'll tell you more than that. Your government that you elected, recognizing the state of affairs, where we were in fact, in the near term, the medium term, and the long term, having gas supply issues, we immediately created and re-established in the cabinet a subcommittee of the cabinet on energy, bringing together all our experts from the state sector, the public sector, and the political directorate. And we meet on a regular basis dealing with this crisis. And we turn to Venezuela, who is our neighbor, and we are on good terms with Venezuela. And in the spirit of international marketing, we work night and day under direction of the Prime Minister's office and the cabinet to talk with the office in Venezuela, the equivalent offices, where our companies talk and the politicians talk, and the foreign minister, Minister Moses and Minister Young, working overtime and overnight, brought it to a situation where I can tell you now, we are very close to agreement for a supply of gas from Venezuela. And I'm on my way on the 5th of December to Caracas to sign the requisite agreement. So when they talk about dismantle, what we have dismantled there is the big lie that there was no gas problem. And the lifeline of this country is based on gas. And if we appear not to have gas for our industries, it is absolutely irresponsible for our government and true government spokespersons to have lied to us so consistently on a matter that is so important to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But that's not our style. Our style is to tell you as we see it, and we'll tell you every time. Every time. So as we go to the parliament, I want to remind you, we in the opposition, under my leadership, we did something that no other opposition ever did. The very first budget brought to the parliament by the Kamla Prasad Bisesa government in 2010, I was leader of the opposition, newly elected leader of the PNM. I did something that no other PLM leader ever did, that no other opposition leader ever did. I led my team to vote for the budget that was brought there by the Kamla Prasad government. The records will show that. And 80% of the bills that they brought to the parliament, after we examined them and we worked with them, we voted for those bills to allow the people of Trinidad and Tobago to put good law on the books. Their approach, as announced, is that they're not supporting anything. PNM has never taken that position because we are about the people, about the country, and about our development, and not about our political lifestyle and our political future. We have never sought to hold any government to ransom when we are in the opposition. So we went to the parliament last Friday. We took to the parliament the identical piece of legislation that the UNC government brought to regulate gambling. Because in this country, the existence of unregulated gambling in the form of casinos is a tinderbox waiting to explode. And any responsible government in Trinidad and Tobago must know that we have significant billion-dollar industry here where some people are getting filthy rich. It's a magnet for corruption and criminality. It threatens our financial basis. It threatens our social standing. And we have to put regulation on this gambling. I know that there are some of you, particularly those of you in the evangelical religious persuasions, who believe that gambling is bad. Many of us believe that gambling is bad. But in a country where there's a gambling industry, which is flourishing without regulation, that is worse than gambling that is regulated. Many of you leave here and go to America religiously for holidays. All over America there is gambling, but it is very tightly regulated. A casino in a country does not a sick society make. But the bottom line is, we went to the parliament with the same bill that they brought. We didn't have an opportunity to say anything about that bill because they brought it towards the end of their term when she had expelled me from the parliament and my colleagues walked out. So we never took a position on it. And the bill lapsed when the parliament prorogued. We brought it back in its identical form. We didn't change a comma. We didn't cross a different T. We put it in the parliament and we explained by way of the Minister of Finance and others talking to them saying, as you have said, we are saying this legislation is required. And it needs a special majority, meaning it needs more than our 23 votes. So we said to them, we know that you are required to pass this legislation to protect our society. As a matter of fact, the international FATCA arrangements demand that we do that, otherwise our banks would be threatened with deregulation and de-risking. They could lose their corresponding banking status if they continue to operate in a country where there is unregulated gambling. So you know what happened? We said to them, after we introduced the bill, and they spoke and we spoke, we said, look, we will send the bill to committee, a special select committee of the parliament, and we will work on the bill in committee, and the committee will bring it back. So if you have any change of mind on any clause or any improvement since you brought it last time, let's deal with it in committee. When it was time to name the committee, which we wanted to name last Friday, no, they took a position. They asked a question to which they know the answer. Are there any regulations going with this bill? Remember, it's their bill, eh? It's like somebody asking you, what is your child's name? They were told, yes, there are regulations. And a big, broad smile went over their faces. Are the regulations being drafted? Are they ready? They expected to hear no. They were told, yes, the regulations are, in fact, being prepared to be readied. By the time the bill comes to the House to be passed, the regulations will be available. You know what? Well, we're not naming anybody to any committee until we see the regulations. That is the excuse. to not support their own bill. So don't be surprised if after all this local government talk, when we present the legislation that encapsulates what we've been talking here about legislative reform and local government reform, with all the benefits for you, don't be surprised at all if those 18 people in the parliament find some reason to not support what we bring to the parliament. But I'm putting you all on notice tonight. This local government reform is going to take place. To the extent that we have 23 seats, you will get 23 seats worth of local government reform. And the next time around when they give us 33 seats, you get the whole hog. Because you see, don't believe that they will change their ways. They believe that obstructionism will give them a good chance to become the next government. To be able to say that nothing is going on, the government is incompetent, they want that mantra. But I pointed out to her, you know. I said, you on the other side, remember who voted for the budget? Remember who supported 80% of the bills brought by the government? That was us in the opposition, and we won the election. It's not about how you behave stupidly in the parliament, it's how you represent the people and how you represent yourself. So we are completely different. And for those who can't see a difference, then open your eyes. There's a big difference between the PNM and the UNC. If we were afraid of them looking good, we would never have voted for the bills. But we knew, with all the bills we voted for, they were looking so bad that they were bad enough to be voted out of office. Never had any doubt about that. And when we are now in government, when we go to proceed with this matter, there could be those who are saying, well, we want consultation. And I'm saying to them, the period for that consultation has passed. The next period of consultation would be on the legislation that goes to the parliament. And there are those who are saying that we are promising things that we cannot do. And I'm saying to them, we are the PNM. To you, it looks as if we can't do it, but to us, it looks eminently doable. And the people are saying to us, they are with us to do it. I can give you very many examples of the PNM doing things in this country which our opponents felt could or should not be done. But tonight, what I want to say to you is that you trust the PNM. You trust the PNM. We've been here for 60 years. We are far from perfect. But we are easily the best political entity in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. Many of you young people were not around for independence. So you would not have known that there were people in this country and across the political aisle for whom independence was a no-no. Dr. Williams left here as a PNM leader and as a chief minister of this country, prime minister of this country, and went to Marlborough House in London not knowing if we were going to get independence. Because the opposition never left Trinidad in support of independence. And even as the discussion was taking place in Marlborough House in London, it broke down there because the opposition from Trinidad was not supporting independence for Trinidad and Tobago because they had reasons not to support it. The same kind of reasons they have now, rooted in sectarianism, rooted in ethnic division, and instead of seeing one nation, seeing this faction and that faction. But this PNM, we have written it into our fundamental document that we are not a party in the ordinary sense of the word, but rather we are a rally for all, cutting across race, color, class, creed, and geography, and all working in the common cause. And tonight I say to you, wherever you live in Trinidad, come join this common cause of local government reform and vote for the People's National Movement in 2016. And when you would have done that, as a citizen, coming down on the side of what is to your benefit and in your interest, When your grandchildren ask you, where were you when local government reform was taking place? You would say, I stood with the PNM on local government reform and created a new approach to governance in this country. Because to do otherwise is to give support to those whose record is so dismal that they're afraid of being told about their own record. And that's why they keep telling you, we don't want to hear no more about that. We hear about that already. It's not about hearing about it. It's about knowing how we were brutalized, how we were robbed, and how we were mismanaged. And the PNM will tell you every single time. Tonight, Arouca, Tunapuna, everywhere in Trinidad, election day is next Monday. Many of you take the position that local government is not important. Councillors don't have no big job and they have no big work. But it is the councillors in the corporation and their action in your street and your neighborhood that gives you the opportunity for having a better quality of life. Let us at the level of the parliament deal with policy and programs and looking ahead. And let the council and the corporation have the authority to manage your day-to-day affairs with the authority to hire and fire and to give you control over contractors who work for you. And if that's too much for you, then 2016 came too early for you. But we believe that you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, wherever you live, in whatever lane and trace, in whatever avenue or highway, you can discern the benefits of the local government reform that we have held out to you. So tonight, it is with extreme pleasure and pride that I bring to you the PNM slate of very carefully selected standard bearers to represent us, all of us, in the various electoral districts. So for the electoral district of Valse and St. Joseph, we bring for you the hard-working, the competent Marcia Chanpak. And for the electoral district of Maracas, Santa Margarita, we bring for you Martin Sean Gonzalez.
As a people we are fine.
Ozenville Tunapuna, you replace Esmond Ford with the young, energetic Travis Williams. Support him again. For Curab Page, we give you Cordell Clark. For St. Augustine South, we give you Narayan Mahavir. Makoya Trend City, we give you Josiah Austin. Cora Paradise Tacarigua, you have a very special candidate, a hard-working, conscientious man. Cora Paradise Tacarigua, we give to you Aaron Thomas. Five Rivers, we give to you one of our youngest, one of our brightest, with a tremendous future in the political arena. We give you Tova Lynn Bartholomew Sandy. Lopino La Florissant, we give you Ariel Alexis. And if you think she's a hard-working councillor, look at the councillor in Dabadi, Cleaver, Judy Garner. Carapo, your candidate is Kevin Gibson. Karen Gibson for Carapo. Mausika Maloney, the new candidate, Stephen Watley. Wallafield Lahoketa, your candidate is Jodan Moses. Santa Rosa Blanchishes, from Santa Rosa Heights to the shores of Blanchishes, we give you the young, the brilliant Candice Allen. Kelly Warrenville in the southern part of the Tunapuna Piaco Regional Corporation. Your candidate is Claude Bell. And of course, bringing home the team, rounding off the PNM's excellent slate of candidates for Bonner, Arouca, Cane Farm. We give you Paul Leacock. And ladies and gentlemen, these are your PNM standard bearers. They represent the best in the political arena at local government. The PNM, the political party in our 60th year. Give us your support. We give you our support. We give you our candidates. And when you would have done that, on the night of November 28th, when they come marching home, you would say with us across Trinidad, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we have prevailed.
Make sure I'm not I told the PNM cause we are we form this together for real, for real.
PNM people!
As a nation we are strong and